All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Natural Ones, the stream where we bumble through our way talking about tabletop role-playing games. I'm joined by Vic, as usual, and Rob here from Pulphummock Press. Welcome, man. We're here to talk about Rob's very successful Kickstarter for his Gods of the Forbidden North Mega Dungeon campaign book for Old School Essentials. I'm really excited to talk about it. It's obviously an OSR guy, and full disclosure, I backed the project and I worked on it as an artist, so I'm maybe a little biased, but you know, I'm gonna throw that out there anyway. So Rob, welcome on to the stream, man. Glad you're here. Pleasure's all mine. So I'm not sure exactly where to start. Let's just start with, I guess, is this your first ever project like this? Okay.
Out since you were like a good solid 12 years old, and all you've done, I just turned 40 this year, so like I'm kind of like, why don't you write what you like really love instead of like trying to like build a career with it? And I'm just having so much fun with this. It's so much more fun. I'm not saying other forms of writing are not pleasurable and I don't get joy out of it, but right now, I don't know. I don't know. I just really am just having a blast with this. So it's a lot of work, and it's growing and growing. It seems like every day, but it's fun, and it's sort of like, I've been running sandboxes and mega dungeons for years. I mean, since I was 12 in Boy Scouts. So all the cool guys in Boy Scouts. I mean, if they're cool guys in Boy Scouts, you know what I'm saying?
I wanted to be in Boy Scouts when I was a kid. I never got to do it because I was poor, but no, there's cool people in it. So for those, I accidentally had your audio muted because I'm stupid. For those that missed it, he was a published short fiction author, and he was a professor, and he just said, screw it, I'm going to start writing my own things, and then that should catch you up to where you're at. So apologies for that. That was my bad.
Oh, you're good. Brevity. You just I'm long-winded, so you just spread things out. That's good.
But I asked if it was your first thing you published, because it was like, I mean, this is a very ambitious thing that you've done. And I mean, I think you've done it. I worked on the project, so I've seen some of the text and everything that you've sent to me and everything. And, it's really cool stuff. And this is going to be a huge campaign, right? Like, how many? It's a mega dungeon / essentially a campaign setting, right?
Yeah, It's gotten bigger since we last talked, because I'm a big fan of sandboxes. That's all I run in my home games.
Mm-hmm.
Is sandbox mega dungeons for like the last like at least 6-7 years. I used to do adventure pads, but like, no, I just want to drop them into a massive, sandbox. Anyway, I was reading this old module that I ran maybe 18 years ago.
Oh, wow.
A long time ago. and it's called Vault of Laren Carr by Necromancer Games, now Frog God Games, which is my favorite third-party publisher in the world.
They're good.
Huge fan. Anyway, so like their products to me are like the gold standard of like, of like D&D-ish, like old school stuff. That to me, that's what I look at, and I put them up kind of on a pedestal to me and I kind of sort of grew up on them. And there was this one by which I particularly love, just a beautiful little module called Vault of Laren Carr, and it's basically just the real short version. It's like this valley called Quail Valley, and it's like got all these keyed locations on the surface, and there's like a second map that lays over it.
That's awesome.
And it's the Underdark, and they all connect, and the ways that the players can like find their way, to do this or that. It's like, just the options are unlimited. Anyway, my players just loved that module, and I loved running it. And it was funny, I'd forgotten about it a little bit, because old. And basically, like I was in the middle of something like very recently in my home game that I'm running, and I was doing something, and I kind of remembered the vault, and I started getting this idea of like, oh, I'm gonna put this little bit of the Underdark into this, Dungeon and Graves campaign I run, and then all of a sudden I went, wait a minute, why don't I do that with Gods of the Forbidden North? Why don't I make more work for myself? And that's exactly what I did. So right now, my artist Billy is drawing up the Underdark continent map that goes underneath, just like Vault of Laren Carr, which was sort of like Vault of the Drow, I guess, or whatever. But
that's
whatever
cool.
One it was based on.
I mean, your Kickstarter was so successful, though. I think you have a little bit. I mean, you have I would think, the cushion to kind of make that happen based on how you're going to produce this, which is you're going to use Drive-Thru RPG, print on demand, and I don't know. I think that's cool. Like, so this is going to. Roughly, how many pages do you think this is going to be?
So I originally said 3 to 350, and I'm starting to go, maybe really small font.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't know. I think it could get bigger. I don't know. Depends on how sparse I am with my words.
That's cool, though.
If I'm like the scrying Dutchman here, then maybe, 350 pages. If I'm more like Rob, who just goes on and on and on, probably 8 billion. Yeah.
That's impressive to me. I mean, maybe it's because you have that writing background that like Vic and I don't have. Like, I feel like when I write, I'm just like the monkey at the keyboard, like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sure you probably still feel that way too. I think everyone probably does, but I think I think maybe that background though, and being a professional writer is maybe is that probably helpful for you in writing this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, like I'm probably approaching it a little more literarily. That's probably not even a word. Like than the average RPG guy who's just like, what's fun? That's kick ass. I'm like probably, I'm looking for theme and, but I'm like trying to tell that guy to shut up sometimes. Like, no, Robert, stop. Not asshole. Like, this is supposed to be fun, but I can't help it. So it's like Tolkien, he kind of suppresses stuff.
Sure.
But it's there if you really want to look for it. It's kind of like I'm trying not to let it be obvious. I'm trying to, because I can't help myself, it's just, that's what you do in a regular, fiction and the stuff that gets published out there in the glossy literary magazines, blah, 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 So trying to weave your art in there and then hide it. That's the secret. That's what a real famous person once said, that writers hide their art and the literary critics, they find it.
It's interesting advice. I mean, I'm just impressed because for me and my first project, which was my first real project, was Cowpunchers, which is like 25 pages, and that felt like, man, that was hard, And I don't know if it's because I was doing the art and the layout, and I was doing everything myself, so that might have been part of it. But it was hard for 25 pages, so I can't imagine 350 plus. I mean, that's a novel.
Well, you were designing. I think the difference is you were designing a game, which is actually pretty that's tough, right?
It is.
Right.
It's really hard.
I mean, Vic knows. I mean, like you change one little rule, and right.
Yep. Yeah, and then you're crawling through the whole book, having to edit everything.
Find all
Sucks.
and replace.
Yep. Yeah. I've literally done that, but then I've also messed up with that, where I replaced the wrong thing.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
So Lord Mateus, the image is all messed up, whatever, says, I'm very glad to back this and I'm excited. And he also said, I think this is referring to your sort of trying to suppress your writer guy in the writing. It says, I think that kind of stuff will give the setting depth. It's the lore that will help GMs and players immerse themselves. So I kind of like that too. I know there's some people that when they see a module written, they don't like. I see both sides. They don't like the flowery, fluffy stuff in there, but for me, it depends on what I'm looking for in a module. If I'm picking up your 350 plus page module, it's not even a module. This is like a campaign setting. Like I want that stuff in there because that's going to help me like flesh out the world and make it more believable and immersive for the players, which is like I think that's the end goal we all want at the table, as opposed to say like I love the basic fantasy role playing modules as well because they're so simple. They're so bare bones. Go do this and this thing's there. You kill it, you take it, and you come back. Like it's super simple, but that also leaves room for me to build on it and make it my own. So they're just different tools for different purposes, I think. So I'm not quite that person that wants to hate on someone for adding in a lot of lore and world building into their adventures and their modules, but it just depends on what tool I want for the session and how I want to run it. So yeah.
Vic, you want to? You're gonna add something?
No, I was typing to somebody.
Oh,
but I fully agree. Yeah.
When did you? So like, I mean, you've been.
Add, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. Like I know there's a movement in the OSR, right? Like, so let's talk about the OSR. Right? Like, there's a movement that wants the really simplified, bare bones, bare minimum stuff, and that makes total sense. It is easy to pick up as a DM. I mean, I'm that guy who's always the DM at his own table. Like I never get to be a player. It kind of sucks sometimes, but like I turn around and like. When I look at like Stonehell, remember that big mega dungeon by Michael Curtis? Mm-hmm. One of my favorite mega dungeons because it's like literally one-line room descriptions, but they're like packed with just enough detail that like it gives you something to say, but there's no descriptions. But I kind of grew up on Monty Cook and his box of golden italicized descriptions and like. I don't have to think about what to say. I just read the damn words. Yeah. So I like both, and I know some people like one or the other. I guess from a business standpoint, even though I'm using Old School Essentials as my vehicle, and I understand their philosophy very well, and it works. It's beautiful. I like it a lot. When it comes to the product itself that I'm publishing, I feel like people are paying for this. I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, they're paying for this. So shouldn't I give them more than they need, even if they want to ignore it?
Sure.
And that's sort of my view personally. So, like the artsy theme stuff, I think that's what Lord Mateus was sort of mentioning. That stuff I'm talking about more like using a lot of metaphor, making some kind of statement with like my themes and my imagery that's not obvious to the average person. That stuff I'm trying to dumb down. But as far as like culture and details, so I mean, I wrote 80,000 words this summer, and I mean, I've got 5 cultures where I talk about their diet. Like, I mean, I'm going to go back and look, do I need this stuff? But I'm writing it as if I do. And then I'm going back after a few, weeks, months, putting it away, coming back to it, and then saying, is this cool? And does it still work? And is it a detail they might want to know? So one of the things I added to the game, for example, is like cultures. And like the idea in this world is that there was like if you want to imagine it, the best parallel would be to our world right after the Roman Empire falls. So you're like in a dark age, right?
Yeah.
So right, that's fun. Lots of conflict. but then you had this like empire, this world-spanning empire that brought all these cultures together, which explains why elves, dwarves, etc., all hang out together and they're like whatever. And so I used more like cultures to distinguish. So you could have an elf who's a Wargoth or an elf who's a Hadean, and those two elves, even though they have a common like look, I guess, like their dress and mannerisms might be very different and what they value. And so like I thought that was kind of neat.
That's cool.
So
I like that because it's different from just like, here are the wood elves. You know, here are the dwarves.
Right.
They live in the mountains and they make stuff like that. That's I like that extra layer on top, and that makes sense for the setting that you're talking about, where there's like a world spanning empire that's bringing cultures together. Because that's what happened with the Roman Empire. You could have a person from this ethnic background who identifies as a Roman citizen and takes on all the Roman customs instead of the culture you'd expect them to take on of their ethnicity. You know, so that makes perfect sense to me. Let's see if there are any comments here. Lord Mateus says he loves that kind of stuff though, so I agree. Ironcaster says
like Lord Mateus's post all the time. He's like one of my guys that's always in my feed. I'm like, oh yeah, there it is.
He's a great guy. Ironcaster says save some for the director's cut. GM still having this sound. I think we got the sound fixed because I think everyone else can hear. So if you're behind on the stream, I fixed it. So
yeah. I was gonna say real quick, my personal philosophy with like the OSR and like kind of like games like that is like I like rules light, but I like setting dense. Like I kind of like that combination. So like if I write an adventure and it's literally just like go into this temple and like kill the vampire, I would feel bad because people are paying for like, you know, what I'm writing. Like I can come up with that myself. Like why am I paying somebody like, you know, $5 just for like a single page where it's like go to this place and kill the vampire? Like, you know, I want like lore, I want like stats, I want like all sorts of shit. So
yeah, I agree. I write an adventure a month on my Subscribestar that is like an OSR compatible adventure, and I try and keep it to like 5 to 7 pages for an adventure. Just like a quick little, you could use it as a one shot or just like a little side quest for you, and you get one of these a month. But you know, I did one where like it was like a village being attacked by these what they thought were orcs, but it turns out to be these humanoid troglodyte people that are you know, inbred, and they're under the control of a witch who's like breeding them, and it's I pretty much just stole the plot from Bone Tomahawk for it. So
yeah.
But yeah, like that's mine now, but it works because Bone Tomahawk is actually kind of like it's a D&D adventure. You know, it's an OSR D&D adventure. Some characters die, you know, or get maimed horribly. That's D&D, old school D&D. As they should.
I've read some of your adventures though, and they're very flavorful. So
thank you. Yeah. So I try and strike that balance though, but yeah, like I like that kind of stuff too. And I think when you were talking about diets of cultures and stuff like that, that's something that I do stuff like that too when I'm going to run a new game or a new setting or something like that, because the players are probably never going to see it, but for me as the game master to get my head in the space for the campaign, like I need that stuff to sort of role play the NPCs when they interact with them and to make them feel different. Like I can't just be like, here's Viking guy, he lives in Viking town, and you know, that's just lazy to me. I don't want to be lazy. So oh, we got a super chat here, 99 cents from Likely Arrow. Thank you. He just sends 99 cents. Thank you. So I want to know a little more about you, Rob, if you're willing to talk a little bit about it. When did you, so you said you started playing when you were 12?
Yeah. My dad, he was in the Army. He was a colonel, a lieutenant colonel. And at the time, I think he was like a, you know, major or something, but he would, you know, he was always working. Guy would like 12-hour plus days, like, you know, and then he'd go away a lot of deployments, and we moved a lot. And if you ask my brother and I, either one of us, I got a little brother, you're younger than me. If you ask my brother Mark or me, or like what was a defining moment in your childhood? You know, some question like that. You'd be like, oh, that's easy. That's the summer my dad whipped out Milton Bradley's Hero Quest and friggin' started rolling skulls and black shields with us. And that's what happened. Like, he played every Saturday for like a good 2 to 4 hours, and we'd do one quest every single week.
That's
and
awesome.
The whole summer. So like, I think it was like 12 quests or something in the original Hero Quest. So that was basically the summer, right, from beginning to end. And we just, I mean, you know, it was like the first time he like really, like, other than taking, we used to go to the movies a lot too together. But you know, when you go to a movie together, you sit next to each other, you stare at the screen,
Sure.
and then we talk about it afterward. But with this game, he was facing us, and he had the Zargon thing out, you know, like the screen with the gargoyle, you know, like, and he's sitting there like he's like reading off like the thing, and he got like really into it. My dad's a serious guy. You gotta understand my dad to understand this is not like him. And like, so my brother and I were just, who is this guy? You know, like, he became like this powerful mystical wizard. It was, you know, Gandalfing us, and like, we were just, oh, we're gonna go on an adventure, and we had so much fun. And he never played with us again. It was like, he came along, he's like, my work is done. And he just, and like, but after that, my brother and I, like, immediately, like, what do you graduate to after Hero Quest, right?
Sure.
AD&D second edition, right? Because that was the big, I think, what year was that? 80. Let's say I was born in 82, so this is around like 90, 91. So I you know, that would have been around, yeah, that sounds about right. So that would have been second edition, with maybe right before they released the final version of that, like the updated books, which weren't as good as the originals.
Yeah. And then that's about around the time when the Rules Cyclopedia came out too, which is my favorite.
Yeah.
My favorite D&D book.
Yeah.
So,
solid book.
Was your dad a nerd? Like, how did he hear about Hero Quest? Was that just something he saw in the store and was like, my boys would love this? Or was he into D&D as well, or just into board games or wargaming or something?
Legend says, John, my father just saw it one day, musty, covered in I don't know. he just, I think he brought it home one day, and we were like, what's that? And he's like, let's play it.
It just showed up like the Jumanji game.
Right, no, like, and we all got swept away, right? That was the end of it. Now we have beards, and we're still out there.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. I have my daughter, she's 2.5, and obviously too young to get into the hobby, but I'm just like counting down the days until she's old enough to where I'm like, we're gonna play some old school D&D, you know. But that's cool. So you started with Hero Quest. I hear a lot of people say that Hero Quest is what got them into D&D. And then AD&D second edition. How long did you play second edition for? Is that like your favorite edition of the game, you'd say?
It is the most nostalgic for me, because I missed the first edition boat. You know, I'm just a little too young probably to have hopped in that when that was around. And so second edition was my baby. Well, I mean, most people would agree second edition is, for the most part, first edition kind of, you know, rules wise, I guess, is a little bit smoother, or at least better organized. I mean, everyone loves the flavor of first ed, and of course, no half orcs and no demons, devils. Like, what the hell, you know? Like, but other than that kind of stuff, like, it's very nostalgic. I've been actually really wanting to run a second edition game, because I haven't actually, but really the one I played the most was third, because I was that came out around 2000-ish, like 2001.
2001, I think, yeah.
I turned 18. I was a class of 2000 when I graduated high school, so I went in the Army shortly thereafter, and so, you know, that's when I really got heavily into D&D, like really started playing. Like, you could never find friends growing up, so it was always just you and your brother, and occasionally one or two dumb friends who didn't really get it that you convinced to play for a little while. But when I got to third edition, I actually ran my first true full campaign with like players and like really, and I'd been wanting to do this for like, you know, 8 years. It was like 20 or so, and so third edition was really where I, you know, busted my chops, which is like the most bloated, horrible system that I still love for some dumb reason. But, you know,
we're kind of nostalgic for like what we really cut our teeth on, you know. Like I started in fourth, so you know, I can't really judge you. So
Yeah, I started on 2.5, and I still have all the books laying here somewhere, and I still kind of love them. I still look through the monster manual like constantly.
yeah, I mean, for me, like I walked into the store and Fourth was there on the shelf, or you know, I wanted to play D&D. My wife bought it for me for then girlfriend at the time bought it for me for Christmas because I wanted to play. So it's like when you go into the store or when you order it online, it's like I want to play D&D. That the latest edition is the one that you're gonna get. So like I'm just glad I got into the hobby. I'm just glad that other people get into the hobby as well. But when you were playing third edition, were you playing like while you were deployed and stuff like that? Was that something you guys did a lot of to just pass the time?
Oh yeah, there's so many nerds in the army. Tons of nerds. Well, bunch of nerds. I don't know how we win battles. We're so nerdy. No. Yeah, we're all like, you guys get attack of opportunity when I fight you, Iraqi. No. That's why we win. We know the rules. No, it's good. No, anyways. Yeah, no, there was a lot of them, but I honestly, it was a bunch of my friends who were in bands. They were like, they almost made it. Like this band, they were called Radio Reset. My buddy Mark Allen was like the bassist. And they turned around and like they opened for Common in Vegas, and like it was like it was back early mid like 2000s, and they almost made it, and then their young dumb like lead singer just crapped the bed and ruined the band. But you know, like it always happens that way. But anyway, that some of the members from that and then their circle of friends became my first true group that was truly like, let's play D&D and let's do it from first to 20th level. And I picked up my favorite module from, I guess, Frog God Games now, but it was Necromancer back in the day. But that was Rapanathuk or Rapanathuk. Some people call it that. Rapanathuk is what that's the end of that debate. That's good. Rapanathuk. I ran that, and I ran Volta Lantern Car, Crucible Freya, Wizard's Amulet, Lost City of Baracus, and I wove them together. What?
B.A. Baracus? Like Mr. T?
Yeah, it was like these massive mega dungeons, basically, just one had to go up to the other. And they were all, you know, I'm sure you guys know Necromancer and Frog God. They even though they write them for newer editions, they're all like old school mentality, probably even before there was an old school Renaissance, really. Like,
sure,
because they really hadn't because I think they published Dungeon of Graves, you know, Rapanathuk, like around 2001, 2002 or 3, somewhere in there, and like OSR I think started coming out because third edition like was out for a little bit, right? And then the OSR started going, hey, wait a second, I don't like all this unified mechanic stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like monsters having ability scores. And then they started, you know, I think maybe Labyrinth Lord or Swords, and one of them popped up, started appearing out of the blue, and then I don't remember the exact history, but you know, or Osric, one of them have. I think maybe it was Osric.
Osric I know was one of the first. I think Swords and Wizardry, Labyrinth Lord, and I think even Basic Fantasy were some of like the first few OSR games to kind of come out.
Isn't Castle and Crusaders pretty old too?
I think Castles and Crusade is. I would say CNC is kind of OSR adjacent though, because it's not really using. It has that old school mentality, and I love that, but it's not the old school mechanics necessarily. It's a little different, but I think the guys who make Castles and Crusades, I know they were doing stuff with Gary before he passed as well, if I remember correctly. But yeah.
Well, they always tell me that Gary basically considered it like the true third edition.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then I agree with the statement that the modern version of Castles and Crusades that's the true 5th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked Castles and Crusades. I've had a few editions of their books. It's one of those games I've never found a group who'd let me run them through it though. Like, I don't know why, but all my group players always are real stingy about whatever edition's out, you know, and it's like, you know, like, come on, like that's honestly, I wish I had played more OSR games because I don't get as often. That's really the systems I want to run, 2nd edition or earlier, you know, like any of those work for me. It doesn't matter which one, but they just, you know, all my players anyway always, want third edition, I want fifth edition, whatever the one is out, Okay.
I think the trick is just getting them. If you can get them to try it, I think most people like it. I've talked about it a lot. I have one of the players in my because I'm doing basic fantasy kind of mushed together with Rule Cyclopedia because I wanted the Ascending AC for the group, but I wanted weapon mastery and I wanted a lot of that other stuff too that basic fantasy just doesn't have, but it's all compatible because it's all OSR. And so he came from 5th edition, and so he's like really taken to it. Like I watch him play now and I'm like, I wouldn't know that you're a new school player, that you started with 5th edition, because he plays it. He plays really well. He loves it. He looks forward. He's one of the guys like, we playing this week? When are we playing next? So, and I love it. So I love converting people. If you can get them to try it, usually you hook them. It's just getting them to try it that first time.
Do you guys like so I'm always like dreaming of running an OSR game, like and like I can't actually decide on a system because I like so many of them for different reasons because they all have their own. Like, I love like Swords and Wizardry's one save. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Why did we do that?
Yeah.
But then I really like obviously OSC's presentation and a cap at 14th level. I actually really like that a lot. But then I also like a basic fantasy. I love I used to own the physical books at one point, and I love that presentation. That's just like, it's so simple, but it's something, you know what I mean? Like nostalgic about that.
When I opened,
I don't know.
When I opened basic fantasy, like it was, because I'm not from old school. So like I said, I started in 4th. Yeah. I'm younger than you. I was born in '87. So I missed 1st edition and 2nd edition. So when I opened basic fantasy, one of the reasons why I picked it was first because it was free for PDFs and printed at cost for the books, and then second because you open it and you're like, oh, this feels like what I was searching for, and I do like the modern touches that it has to it. But I want to kind of bring it back to Gods of the Forbidden North as well, because that's why we're here talking to you. No one wants to hear that. No, so many people. I mean, people here in the chat have backed this. Like I said, I backed it as well. I was really excited for it because this is something I would totally do. Because from what you told last I talked to you about it, you said that this is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to take players from level 1 to level 14, which is level cap in OSE. That is awesome. So like
and I actually, it was funny. I was trying to calculate the experience and the gold and everything, and trying to make sure that everything lines up right. And now with the Underdark, it's not going to be called that for copyright reasons, but on the Underdark that I'm adding essentially is going to make it where there's like way more than you need. I think you get 14th level, party of 5 or 6 guys to 14th level. So it's like they don't have to accomplish everything in the module to advance. You know what I'm saying? So
that's kind of nice, because like there's probably going to be lots of things that a lot of play groups are not going to get to. So you want to have that probably going over and above what you need for levels 1 to 14 is good, so that if they miss that quest or that dungeon over here, it's not gonna get to the end and be like, oh, we're screwed. Which is fine.
Plus it's not but it's not that hard to tag on extra levels anyway, so if they want to just keep on leveling, you can easily do that. You can easily extrapolate like what you get at level 15, 16, 17, whatever.
Oh, you could look at basic fantasy that goes to level 20, or you just get the rules cyclopedia, and that will take you there as well. So that's awesome. I had another question.
36, baby.
Level 36, yeah. And then then become a god. I love the rules cycle.
Book of Immortals, where it just kept going.
Yeah, I love the rules cyclopedia, but I don't know if I'd go to level 36. I mean, has anyone ever gone to level 36? That just seems absurd.
You never know.
One of my old best friends, like this guy named Roland, and he's a collector. He loves buying stuff. He had this like really like hard to find like Wrath of the Immortals, but for 3.5 or something back in the day. And he's like, Rob, it's calling to you. You must run it for me. And he's always like trying to get me to start at like 21st level. And I was like, finally, I was like, all right, dude. All right. So I was like, how about this? I was like, I'll start you at 11th level, but we'll do the mythic rules with Pathfinder, and then we'll do Planescape, because I'd always want to do Planescape. and he like created a monk that could do like he's like 22d6 damage.
Oh my God.
It's like he got this whole like wad of dice, and he would just throw them out. They go everywhere, and he goes, "Don't touch them. Let them fall where they may." You know?
We have a super chat here from Matt. He just says for $4.99, thank you, sir. You are a scholar and gentleman. He says so many games, so little time, and I know that feeling, especially as a dad of a 2-year-old. You're like, I just want to play. I miss my 20s where I could run 14-hour games and everyone was cool with it and all that stuff.
I miss my 20-year-old body too.
I miss that too. Yeah. I
miss it all. I
was skinnier and I could eat whatever I wanted. Yeah, those were good times. GM Still Haven says you had me at Hero Quest. So he liked your reference to Hero Quest and doing that. Let's see.
Barbarian all the way, baby. 3 dice to attack. That's all you need.
I want to play Hero Quest. I've never played it, and getting an original copy is really hard. And then I don't know if I want to give Hasbro money for the new one. So, I just.
No, actually, because I'm a nerd. Before my Gods of the Forbidden North project, I set up and roll because I use Roll20 to play all my games now. All my group, they're back where I used to live. So like I can't, I don't really have a group anymore. So like I play Roll20 only, and I've been doing that for about 7-8 years, I guess. And one day I got this crazy idea to like, I'm going to go upload Hero Quest, the old one, entirely into Roll20. So I actually have the whole game with all of its expansions in there. So if you want to get down, man, you can get some of these guys who are like in the chat. Let's do this, Lord Mateus. And we can do this. Oh. Yeah, Hero Quest, baby.
Original 80s one.
Yeah, and it's in
but mine's in Dutch.
Oh, never mind, I don't want it. It's in Dutch.
Yeah. But I found it for 50 cents at a flea market.
I wish I could get lucky like that. Man, is it missing parts?
Originally it wasn't, but I think I'm missing the little quest booklet, but you can like print that, so that's fine.
Yeah.
There's this website you can go to, right? You just type in Hero Quest, and it like has everything on there. You can download it. I forget the name of the web. It's easy to find, but like it has like all the old quest books, everything. And so what I was doing, like to make the Roll20 thing, John, was like I was just like screenshotting like the cards front, the back,
and
then like making the handout in Roll20. So like everything's there. I got the card deck, and I even have a way to like draw the deck randomly by rolling like dice.
That's cool.
We can do this, man.
Yeah, I'm down. I love those old minis. That's the one thing too, is like the new minis for the new version, they look really well done. They're super detailed, but like they kind of lack that 80s, early 90s like odd shapeness that I personally like. But
did you see Vic the Chaos Sorcerer that you had, that piece? So in the original Hero Quest, right? Since you were talking about Gods of the Forbidden North, John, I got to bring this up.
Sure.
So the original Hero Quest, there's a fire mage named Balor, and I think it's spelled Balor or something like that, or Lur. I forget the original, but the main bad guy in my Gods of the Forbidden North game is Balor, Baalor. And he's called the Witch Lord, which was the other bad guy from Hero. So you can see like I raised up on Hero Quest, you know what I mean?
And I got to draw Balor, so Balor, so I'm pretty happy with that. It was pretty cool. I didn't know that I was going to have that response. I think I would have been a lot more nervous when you had assigned that work to me if you had told me that, like, because I think I was working under the assumption that like someone else had already done it, or you kind of gave me a description, so then I just did it and you're like, oh, that looks cool, no one else has made him yet, so that's what he looks like now. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I told Ian Bagley, like he comes back and does one, he goes, what does he look like? And I go, John Torres has drawn him for me. And I said,
now you guys know the Dutch word for wizard.
What does it say?
Tovenaar.
That sounds cooler than wizard.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Let's see here. We got anything else here? Ironcaster says, My 5e game, my 5e game I'm in now, the DM is dead set on running us to level 40 for this game. Does 5e go to level 40?
Officially, no. It's like 20, but I'm sure there's ways to do it. And since it's 5e, it'll probably take you like a year. Maybe
yeah,
at most.
I guess I'm in an OSR mindset because I'm like doing like how the XP levels, grade up, and I'm like that's gonna take so long, but it's 5e, so it's like the leveling up thresholds are a lot smaller. So
yeah, I've been running my game for maybe a little under 2 years, and they're about to hit level 10. So it's not that fast, but
yeah, it does slow down. I know eventually, but it slows down to me at a point when I'm like, all right, now it's time to retire characters. For me personally, for my tastes, or it's time to get into domain play, and we're gonna do I guess what the Bro Asar wants to do, but I'm gonna make you earn it. I'm not gonna just give it to you.
Hey Vic, is your how many sessions would you say you've played in your game to get to 10th level? Like every week?
It's like bi-weekly for like 2 years, so however many that is.
Yeah, but okay. My game right now is the third. Like I think they just hit 33 sessions. We're doing it every week for about 3 hours. So just to give you an idea. Yeah. And I actually changed the experience system before we started because I was like, some bullshit. And I was like, so I took the second edition fighter table, which is the most purest form of XP advancement there is. Clearly, that's canonical. I think that's that. I took that XP table and I started with that to see if it would work with 5th edition, and I had to make some tweaks as it went. And now I've got like I feel like the fighting Urukai of XP tables for 5e. And it's like long, like but they've still reached. They just reached a couple nights ago 7th level. Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not fair.
Yeah. Hey, you don't show up, you don't get XP.
Darn right.
You have to earn that. You don't just there should not be any participation trophies at the gaming table. I'm sorry. I will die on that hill. No, that's cool. Do you count gold as XP?
Yeah, no, I that's what I was trying to do because I've been running Rapanathuk, and little backstory. Now we're talking about my home game. This is more fun than anything else. So I've been running this module from Frog God Games during Necromancer games for like almost 20 years. Like I've been running it over and over and over and over and over again, and with each edition. And so obviously 5th edition. I actually, before they came out with an official world map where they connected all these different modules that I've always been running, I made my own up years ago. With my like a hexographer program or whatever. I think I even posted it here once, Vic, and maybe you saw it. I don't remember. Yeah. Like I made that up, and like I set it all up in Roll20, and I started bringing in all the modules I liked. Right now in Roll20, I have and I have 2 backups for it just in case I lose it. Those sons of bitches, I don't want to take away all my work. But basically, I have this massive, huge sandbox game for the Lost Lands as I envisioned it before they came out with the Lost Lands and told us what to think. And basically it's got Rapanathuk, the Tomb of Abasthor, it's got the Vault of Larenkar, the Underdark, it's got a ton of their modules, all just the Bard's Gate module, all kind of put into one. It's this huge massive game with just way more than they could ever need. And so I was like, but the problem is Rapanathuk, John, to get to your question, is they designed Rapanathuk for, the original editions, right? Mm-hmm. And when they updated it to the newer editions, they really didn't change the treasure amounts from what I saw. They look the same from every edition.
So it should work.
Well, it's way too much gold for a 5th edition party. You give a 5th edition party 400 gold, they're like, woohoo! But that's Frog God Games is Bill Webb, the guy read it. He's like, here's 10,000 gold. Yeah. And you're like, whoa. So I was like, what's the only? Oh, he did that because they needed it in advance. So you have to kind of redo the XP charts to appropriately run those modules in 5th edition. So that's, anyway, long-winded answer, but that's basically my answer. I'm sticking to it.
I've often
A
thought
5e 10,000 is like a good magic item
Yeah.
or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and well, I mean, but in the OSR, in an OSR game, like you're splitting that 10,000 between 5 or 6 players, let's say. So
Mhm.
you know, that's still a lot for a 5e character, but for an OSR guy, you're like, oh, cool. I'm gonna have I have 20 more sessions until I'm the next level, you know, because I only got like 1,000 XP or 2,000 1,500 XP or whatever from all that gold.
Yeah.
And I tried to use 5e's like official, well, their second version of it, the Xanathar's like downtime system, because I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's a sandbox, right? And one of my players, he's like one of my best friends. You know, he's my best friend, but he basically like he's like he's that min maxer guy who will find the way to destroy the world. You know, like with his persuasion checks. You know?
Yeah.
And he like found a way using Xanathars. He built this like crazy bard build where he just gets to take 10 on any charisma check, and his like base is like a +9. And so when he has enough gold like this system gives, he can basically buy all these crazy items using their system if you allow the buying magic items. And it's like, whoa. And like he had already let that Kraken out, so like I wasn't going to be that guy who said, oh, I'm going to take it away.
Yeah.
So I just let him do it. But then I was like, crap.
I've been there. Yeah.
Roll with it.
Well,
so hard to kill.
That's when you have a dragon come, and you know, there's a little fire blast, and you make all those magic items do a saving throw.
I tried. Fifth edition characters are like unkillable. I killed one guy. They were 5th level, and they fought a CR 18 dragon, and I killed one guy, and they beat it. And I was like, I mean, I thought it was cool. It was fun. But man, it's definitely a very different system than Swords and Wizardry, where you know the rat comes out and you're like, ah!
Like, oh, there's a dragon, we should run.
CR doesn't mean shit.
No, it doesn't. It's a useless metric for. When I ran 5th edition, I never used CR. I just looked at the stat blocks and I was like, yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
Is that too difficult? I don't care. Is that too easy?
That's
maybe.
Basically, I'm just gonna run it the way Bill Webb and them wrote it. So if they go into the part with the CR7s when they're 2, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And they've managed to survive so far, but they've had some close calls.
But I'm just saying for your magic user guy or the bard guy, like does 5e have give magic items or object saving throws? I don't remember. It's been so long.
I don't think so. No.
Oh. So like, if you're carrying a bunch of
Like
magic items and you get blasted by like magical dragon fire,
he kind of hand waved that, but if like you try to deliberately try to destroy it, that's got like some rules. But I think I forget what they are, because I haven't seen anyone actually try to do that unless it's like a cursed item they found. You know, like they found this Flynn's, like a FLIND, like a knoll, like that's been possessed by a demon. Like they found this Flynn's like evil flail. And instead of letting it just like lose its powers whenever like they kill it and find, you know, they take its flail, like the 5e lore says, I'm like, screw that, I'm gonna let them take it, and that thing's gonna mess with them. so they were like doing all this crazy damage, but the Dragonborn guy, he starts getting possessed by Yi Nogu. like pretty soon, they're like, we gotta destroy this. So now they're thinking, oh man, how do we destroy it? And I'm like, you must take it deep into the heart of, you know, whatever, you know. That's how I ran it.
Okay. Because I think I'm trying to think, like I'm thinking of Basic Fantasy or some other OSR systems, and I think it offers a saving throw for magic items if they take a hit from something that could destroy them. But obviously that's kind of mean. I'm trying to envision like an OSR guy who's familiar with old school stuff. He has his magic item and he makes a mistake where his stuff's going to get destroyed, and it happens. You give him the saving throw and it happens. He's going to be like, yeah, saw that coming. But I think a modern gamer, you destroy their magic item and they're like, you monster. You know,
yeah,
I hate you.
It's because they spent like 50,000 gold on it. So
see, I've kind of neglected chat here. I should look here and see if anything's here. Legion of Myth says, all right, I'm old and it's not Friday night, time for bed. Have a good night, everyone. See ya, Max.
Take care, buddy.
Adam Black just wanted to. This is Vane.
Yeah, Adam.
This is Vane for me. He says the Baylor art that John did is awesome, but Adam did some really awesome art for the project as well. So.
Yeah, you and him, John, came up with my evil David Lee Poe criminal mastermind Yaga Shan. Like, he did the Beholder, which is not supposed to be a beholder, blah blah blah. But he did the Beholder, you did the human version. So
yeah, that was one of the most fun illustrations I did too. I had a lot of fun with that one just because I love Big Trouble in Little China.
That's a good movie.
But I had fun drawing that one. Let's see, anything else here?
You sent me an email, you're like, so what does he look like? And I just sent you a picture of David. I said, use liberal inspiration. I was like, this will be fun. And you came back and I was like, oh, that's so glorious.
I'm looking forward to throwing money at you both as well, and we're just gonna put both of you artists on the map.
Thank you. I still gotta finish your redneck lizard man on one of these streams. I think I'm gonna do it. Yeah. I'm gonna finish rendering them out.
Yep, I need my lizard man and my Texas Ranger dwarf.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other comments here? Calstaff's here. Welcome, Calstaff. This training older editions sucked up all the gold. Midnight Green. Dude. So there's a question for Gods of the Forbidden North. So this mega dungeon is based on 5e. Vic already gave the answer in chat, but it's for old school essentials. So BX clone D&D, my favorite edition of D&D, my favorite version of D&D. Well, that brings me to this question I wanted to ask you too. What made you choose OSE out of all of the OSR clones out, or all the OSR games out there? Why OSE?
It's a good question. So I had envisioned it as Swords and Wizardry, and I was about to go Swords and Wizardry, and all of a sudden Old School Essentials got huge, and I was like, it kept flashing. Everywhere I looked, I kept seeing Old School Essential, Old School Essential, Old School Essential, Old School. And I was like, and then I didn't see anything about Swords and Wizardry, and I was like, all right, well, they're pretty much the same, whatever.
They are.
What's the difference? So I said, all right, let's go with that one. That seems to be a sign from the heavens,
I really like Old School Essentials. I have OSC Advanced, and it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's no different from like the Rule Cyclopedia or even Basic Fantasy or anything like that. But I guess maybe it's because I've read other books, read other games, and read other rule sets, other retro clones and stuff like that. So for me, I see OSC and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I bought it. But part of me kind of scratches my head when I started seeing OSC really blow up. I'm like, why is this? Because it's just like a better laid out version of Basic Fantasy or Swords and Wizardry.
That's important though. Accessibility is very important for people.
It is. Yeah, the layout and the way the rules are written in OSC is like very clear and concise. Max, who left, he often refers to it as like VCR instructions, but it's a little more, and I think it's more entertaining to read OSC than it is like programming your VCR instructions. But
it also has very interesting, unique art. I guess that's also a draw.
Yeah,
it doesn't have like the standard generic fantasy art that you see on everything else. It's very it has a very own style.
Yeah, and I guess like Basic Fantasy has like the art isn't necessarily that great. There's some good pieces in there, and then there's some that are just like, yeah, that was some. It reminds me of like OD&D, where it was like that was a 14-year-old kid that you paid to make that,
Yeah.
Which there's a certain flavor I like to that as well, even as an artist myself, because I like that sort of guerrilla warfare aspect of producing stuff. But yeah, I guess I get it. I'm not trying to rag on OSC. I really love OSC. It's a great product. I think it's kind of going to be the death of clones though. Like I think after OSC, like
over.
I mean, what's
left?
What's left? I mean, because there's already so many. You have Osric, you have For Golden Glory if you want to play second edition. You have Basic Fantasy. You have OSC and OSC Advanced, which is kind of like taking BX and AD&D and making them kiss and like each other. So, you know,
I think the next big thing is the stuff we're doing is you're taking that system and doing something completely different with it.
Sure.
Like, you know, you're doing with Atom Punk and what I'm doing with Simple Modernity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was going to say something. Another benefit that I've noticed of OSE is that they will actively promote like third-party like creators like Pulphummock over there. Like I saw that they like retweeted him and like everything, like, you know, the official account. So it's not like, you know, like they're ignoring their the people that are actually making cool stuff for them.
No, they're smart. I mean, Gavin, he's got a smart ship he's running. They put me in one of they have like a little newsletter or whatever they send out, bulletin, whatever. And I was in that too whenever I was in the middle of my campaign. Really cool that they did, and I've seen them doing it with other people, and you know, and it's not a knock at any of the other OSR guys or anything. I think Gavin probably is him and whoever's with him is very business savvy, so they're pretty smart cookies. I think the one of the other things I liked about Old School Essentials, like, you know, besides the presentation, was that I feel like the cool part about such a simple layout for the rules is, you know, you got combat like on 1-2 pages, you know, like,
yeah,
and it's like it just, you know, like you get right into it. And I think, you know, think about a new player, like, okay, like I want to do 5th edition, I want to be a this and that, and then they, you know, even with the character mancer on Roll20, it takes, you know, a little while to learn your rules, but there you just hop in, and the layout is pretty nice for that, especially for like cons and stuff. Like I'm sure that's probably real easy. Although I still like the other, like I like Basic Fantasy. I like Swords and Wizardry's layout. Like I like Matt Finch and his like really tiny little words and this huge blocks of stuff. I'm like, yes, so much meat, potatoes. I love it. Like, but I don't know. I'm kind of an odd bird. I like a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, like White Box is one of my favorite clothes.
Yeah,
and
great one.
It's definitely, I don't think I'm hesitant. I used to recommend it to people because it's so affordable and the PDF is free, but there's so many gaps in it because it is like an OD&D clone where you're like, this isn't the best thing. Like I remember looking through it and I read the whole thing and I'm like, hey, wait, how do I know how many monsters appear in a random encounter? It's like, we're not going to tell you.
Yeah,
you know,
just make it up.
Just make it up. Or there's lots of things like that in White Box. So OSE is one of those products where, and I think this is probably why I think OSE has kind of been the gateway for a lot of 5 years into the OSR. You know, because it is so clear, is so concise. I'm trying to think that if I was trying to get into the OSR now, it probably would be through OSE. Because it's so clear and so concise, and coming from that modern mindset, like I would look at it and be like, oh, I understand descending armor class and attack matrices now. Okay, like I understand how this old school system works. So because for the longest time descending AC was just a mystery to me. Like, this is magic, how do you do it? Not anymore, but you know, at a certain time it was. So
it was the first OSR I bought, and I've kind of found myself like I have like a bunch of other OSR nows. I have like Basic Fantasy, I have the Rules Cyclopedia, I have like all sorts of stuff. But I found myself, I'll be like reading a rule in like an older edition, and I'm like, I'm gonna see how OSE describes it, because they're a lot more clear about the stuff. There's no Gygaxian that, you know, is confusing me. And then I like read the Old School Essentials version. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
the high Gygaxian cocaine fueled.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's see some comments here. Ironcaster says that the OSC Kickstarter promoted like half a dozen other OSC. I'm assuming he said an OSC Twitter promoted like half a dozen OSC Kickstarter projects the other day. I think that's cool that they do that they support like third party people doing stuff for them. Like that's something you don't really see WotC doing.
Yeah, no.
You know, for 5th edition.
Not unless you have certain physical characteristics that they can exploit.
Yeah. Then they'll just hire you and make you write for them. So
yeah.
Raven says, I'm going to pick up Gods in PDF because I'm running out of space for physical copies. Well, then you just need another bookshelf, Raven. That's a simple solution.
Get it together, Raven.
Ironcaster says the eternal struggle for shelf space. DM Blackwell has my suggestion: build more shelves. Problem solved. So about Gods of the Forbidden North, I guess let's bring it back to that too. What is the, without revealing like the story and too much about it, like what is Gods of the Forbidden North for the people here, maybe here in chat that didn't back the project, but maybe they're interested in buying it when it comes out?
So yeah, I guess sorry, my brain's a little fried. I'm tired, but so hopefully it makes sense here. So basically, it's just I remember one day I was sitting there, and I, as a kid, I loved Conan the Destroyer, and I remember this castle, like that big icy castle.
Yeah.
You remember they have to swim underneath. I remember like there's this misty lake, and there's this castle. And like, it was just really cool image, and people like will probably disagree and say that movie kind of sucks, but whatever. I loved it as a kid. Screw you. So, like, that image was how I got the whole idea for the module. It was like, I wanted to do a mega dungeon because I was so inspired, and I'm such a fan of Rapanathuk. And I just love massive, huge, ridiculous mega. It's just so cool to me. I don't know. I just can't get enough of them, and I buy them all up. And I said, what kind of mega dungeon would I want to make? And it just kind of clicked. Like, do the Conan the Destroyer castle, but make it your own. And so I've always loved Forbidden North, like Arctic settings. I've been to Alaska and things like that, and for work. And basically, I was like, like, what if I had like a castle, sort of icy, and it was some evil Balor / Witch Lord / Sauron like bad guy is like it's his abode, and he vanished, and nobody knows where he went. They think he's still alive, but they don't really know. And what if the town that was nearby, that was kind of afraid of him and almost got destroyed by him, decided, we don't really have the manpower to go in there and make sure he's gone. So why don't we just put out a call for adventurers and get them to go do it, and just tax the shit out of them when they come back. So basically, that's the premise. Basically, there's this evil bad guy, this sort of necromancer, sorcerer king type character, who's named he calls himself the Skull God. He calls himself, with kind of the title of the piece, he's the Skull God. And basically, he showed up and he conquered this Forbidden North, this place no one's really ever been to, and the tribal peoples that were there. And this empire, before it fell, kind of shows up and starts to settle the place. And they meet these tribal people, the Inaruk, and they're kind of like, "Hey, we're the Hadean Empire. We're here to like bring civilization to you." And they go, "Hey, yeah. Screw you, because we got this Skull God guy who's going to kill you all." And they're like, "Skull God? Oh, you silly, superstitious people." And wait a minute, there is a Skull God, and he's got an army of undead. They're coming to kill us all. And so the Empire's, all right, let's wipe this guy out. And so they send an army back after getting their ass kicked, and they wipe out the undead army, but they lose a horrible number of people because, like in real combat, two forces meet, right? And like one side starts losing, what do people naturally do? They run, right? Not undead. Undead just keep attacking till the end, right? And so this undead army gets destroyed, but it keeps fighting to the end. So the Imperials get their ass kicked, and they're like, "Oh man, we don't have enough forces to storm the castle until we get more reinforcements." So they're like, "Let's shore up. Let's build some towers. Let's like control the part that we have, and we'll come back and we'll get this guy when the Emperor sends us his guys, right? It sends us a legion or two, go in there and finish the job." Well, that same year, within a few months, the Empire falls. And so what happens is they never get any reinforcements, and they suddenly become a self-sustaining city-state. And unlike all the other cities, if you will, of the Roman Empire that are out there that are in civil war, getting attacked by Sharg raiders and all these other bad guys that are attacking. They're in the north. A big ocean separates them from everybody. And so what happens is they start to become sort of like a beacon of light, like a place where, hey, nobody's killing everyone. No one's dying of the plague. And up there in the north, there's promise. And then they put out a call for adventurers because they're not getting those reinforcements. And they're like, we got to take this guy out, but we can't do it ourselves right now. And we need more people. So they put out a call for, hey, we have room. Come live with us. So it's like this whole it's like a California gold rush or the land out west. So everyone's like, hey, that you're the adventurers start on a ship that's about to arrive in the port because there's some of these people, and they're showing up. And it's been about 20 years since the empire fell and since the Witch Lord, the evil skull god, vanished. And so nobody knows why he never came back out. Nobody knows what's happened. And of course, the leaders of the town sort of started telling everyone, hey, he's dead. You can go in there and we'll just take a tax. And that's what they're trying to do. So no one really knows what's happened to him. But he's actually alive. It's just, something's happened to him. So anyway. Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's this big abode. It's a big abode, mysterious, and it's the abode of this evil guy. And some of it, some of the castle's been overrun by the natural critters out there. Some of it's still controlled by some of his forces. A lot of factions. All the good stuff that makes Mega Dungeons kind of fun. I've developed this whole weather northern system based on real Arctic. The way it really works. And I'm trying to straddle the line between realism and simplicity, obviously. So, but I think it's pretty cool. I use the pre-existing rules that are already there, like the way the wind works in OSE and for ships. And I took that table as my starting point with like wind chill and stuff. And
okay.
So there's like cold levels. Anyway, so I can just keep talking. You gotta shut me up, John.
No.
Me, shut up.
You're here to talk about the really cool thing that you're making. So talk all you want. Calstaff sent a sticker. It won't appear here, unfortunately, but it's a smiley face with sunglasses. So for anyone, you can see it in chat. You can't see it on the screen, but thank you, Cal, for the super sticker. And he says, "Great stream, guys, but I've got to go. Thanks for watching, Cal. Happy birthday too. I think it was your birthday yesterday or today.
Happy birthday."
And
Happy birthday.
Midnight Green agrees with you. He says the awful Conan film, great D&D like film. So I like Conan the Destroyer as myself. Like it's fun. Like it's not as good as the first one, and that's okay. Most sequels are not, but it's fun to watch.
I like all of them. I even like Red Sonja. So
yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Lord Mateus says that's some cool world building in reference to your everything you just explained. So I think Lord.
Oh, cool! Yeah, thank you.
I think he's excited for it. I am.
It's a lot better in writing.
Yeah, that's usually the case. Whenever I try to explain my stuff, it sounds like retarded, and I'm like, oh no, nobody's gonna want to read this.
It's funny. I've got the intro, the dramatic legend, and I would even read parts of it for you, John, if you wanted me to. I mean, whatever you guys want. I could share a screen, show you pictures, and whatever you guys want.
If you want to share, if you have stuff you want to share on the screen, you can, and I can have it appear here on the stream if you want, if that's what you want. But totally, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, just you let me know what you want. I'm an open book. I'll tell you how much money I have left from the Kickstarter if you want to know it. I really don't care. I'm like, oh, this is fun.
Well, your project was 347% funded, right? Like how much were you asking for, and how much did you get?
I shot for 10,000. I thought that was achievable, and I thought it would get me back a decent amount of my money because I'd been paying out of pocket, and I was working on this on the side for a long time before I decided to run a Kickstarter. I wasn't even originally going to do a Kickstarter. I was going to do it the way like the guy who did, I think, Arden Vool was like this really long, huge mega. He just like popped out of nowhere. Like he was like, "Here you go." Yeah. And I was like, wait, who's this guy? What? And like, I was gonna be like that guy, like just come out of nowhere. But then, some things happened. It just sort of happened. It fell into place, and I was like, maybe I'll just do a Kickstarter. And it just sort of, it like took off, like just do, like just in a row, like doors opening. And anyway, I lost the question originally because I'm tired.
It's okay. If you need to cut out and go to bed because I know it's a work night.
Oh no,
it's all good. Won't be offended. I totally get it. But
no, I'm a professor, so like I'm off right now, but I'm working.
Okay, okay.
Not like show up and clock in. Like
okay, I just want to make sure I'm not ruining you for tomorrow by making you stay up.
Oh no, that's what Adderall for. That's what Adderall's for.
Well, my question was how much. So you asked for 10K. How much did your?
Oh yeah.
How much?
I got 34,700 something. It was, and I got a couple of late pledges that I've been keeping track of on a Word document. So don't forget those guys because there's no way to like add them afterward.
Sure.
That I know of anyway. But yeah, it did enormously well, and I think part of the success was really old school Essentials success. I just sort of like married to them right at the right time and sort of rode their coattails. That huge Kickstarter they did for like almost 800 grand. It was like,
yeah.
And I think some of that like kind of overflow like got me, like people saw me because I was doing it for them, and it just just took off, and I was really excited with the result. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I've been doing the numbers, like how much the project will cost to make and stuff, and it turns out that that's perfect. Like should leave me a couple thousand when all is said and done, after the layout and everything. That's where you really blow your money, and you get the last bit of art and everything you need. So
that's why I try to do layout myself for my stuff. I'm not very good at it, but I'm saving money. So.
I'm making my best friend do it.
But
I thought about it. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, Vic, what were you saying?
No, I said I'm just making my best friend do it, and then John was going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, but you bought her a nice piece of software to be able to do it.
So. Well, she's also getting money. Like, she's getting 25%, like, the first 2 years of, like, all my sales. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But layout is super important, as talking about OSC. Like, a good layout that can make or break a book. So.
It is. I told myself when I was doing this project, like not to knock on my favorite third-party product guy in the world, but Frog God Games, Necromancer Games. I've never been super satisfied with their art choices. Like there's some really cool pieces they'll have, and their maps are always really good, and the content's awesome. But like sometimes I'll look at their art choices, and I'm just like, they could have done better. They could have done this, and and to me they're the gold standard. So I'm always thinking, how could I do better than the gold standard, right? How can I? So for me, I was like, I will spare no expense on the art and the maps. I want that to be like really good. And so I think so far, every single piece of art that I've had, that the ones I've shown, the ones I still have that no one's seen. I mean, every time I look at every single one of them, I go, that is so cool. Like as a geek, like, like that is a cool piece of art. And that's what I told myself. I don't want any art that I'm like meh about.
Sure.
And never settle on that. And that was one thing I tried to, I think that might have been another reason we were so successful, because the art I got Ian Bagley, I got John Torres. I got all these really great artists, Adam Black, and who's like there's a ton of them, like Carlos Castillo, and they're just you see Carlos's stuff everywhere now, like and they all have a really rich kind of personal style that sets them apart, but they all kind of work together. I don't know. And then my Terry Venata, I have to give him the biggest shout out. Him and Billy. Billy, of course, is my map guy. He's done all the maps, and he's been working on this with me for like I don't know, say 3 years or 4 years. We started. I mean, I just started going to him. He's another professor. I think he's in Texas, and I just started paying him on the side for his maps. I was telling him, I got this castle I want to do. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't thinking Kickstarter and all this other stuff. And it was just for fun. It was literally just a side project that was going to be, just something I was going to do back for the hobby. A big, cool mega dungeon, taking the best of everything I'd ever seen and all the different products that I've ever read, and trying to put them together into one really cool sandbox mix that's kind of stand out and a little different than everything, but also familiar enough that, it ties into everything. And like, I was sitting there just doing this, and he was coming up with these really cool maps, and I was just paying. I spent like 7 or 8 grand just out of my own pocket, just, and I was writing and just, at a casual speed, and then as time went on, like, I started seeing the maps, and I was like, when he got close to finishing the dungeon, everything I told him, I was like, this looks really freaking cool, like just the maps. So I go and I go to Terry Venata, and Terry's this ex-Marine, lives down in Texas, and just a really cool guy. Like, he's just a fun guy. You ought to have him on here one time. But he talks to me, and I tell him my vision. He does all these crazy kaiju like monster drawings, and he worked for the film industry, and he did concept art for them. And he does that awesome cover.
Yeah, that cover's great.
Yeah, Kickstarter. And he did that huge giant one I sent out not too long ago. I think I got it pinned to the top of my Twitter thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, that's a badass drawing. That's like one of the coolest drawings I've ever seen. And like, he's got 2 other ones he did for me, and they're just like and they're all going to be 2-page spreads, like the cover and the 2-page spreads.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I was like, and I paid good money for it. And then I was like, I got to have Ian Bagley because I've seen him in so many things. I just loved his stuff, from Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. And I was like, I really liked his style. And then I think, John, I didn't realize you were an artist. I didn't know that about you. I just like, oh, this guy's smart. I like what he says. And I just started like listening to you and liking your stuff. I was like, he's a cool guy. Like, look at everyone shit on him, and look how he just knocks him aside. I love it. And all of a sudden, like, just taking the brave stand, and I was like, yeah, I admire that. That's cool. And then all of a sudden, like, I was like, oh, he's an artist. Oh, he did like Call of Cthulhu and all this other. Oh, wow. Oh, he's really good. And I was like, oh, no wonder I ran into him. And I was like, John. Like, yeah. Anyway, so I got Adam Black, like, somehow through the internet, like
might have been through the server.
Yeah, because that's how I got them to Gilded.
Yeah, because he was posting his art here on the Gilded server a lot. So, and he's a really good artist too. I love his line work and stuff. He's a really great line work.
He's done a lot of like comics for like years, like since back in the 90s. I think if you go look at his stuff, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and like he draws like really cool stuff. Like if I was doing a comic book, I'd be like, Adam, let's do this. It's really good. Yeah.
So what's been the hardest thing so far with doing this project? I mean, aside from the writing is probably always a struggle. I know that anyone that's tried to like make an RPG product probably knows that, but I guess maybe let me rephrase the question. What's been the unexpected hardest thing that you've had to deal with in doing this?
Let's see. The unexpected hardest thing. Well, I'd say it just comes down to time. Like, I mean, I was supposed to have so 3 of my buddies, good friends of mine, were supposed to help me with some of the writing. And I mean, I was going to be the creative main writer, but like I was going to have them come up with like encounter ideas, so I didn't have to do all the creative heavy lifting, and basically what happened is all 3 of them crapped out on me. So now it's like all Rob 24/7, like. And I mean, I got a lot of extra responsibilities at work this summer. And so I'm so glad I got on Adderall, like officially. I'm not like abusing it or anything. I'm obviously a very open book. I don't really care if people know where I live or whatever. I don't really care about that stuff. I'm just very, I'm just like that. But I got diagnosed with ADHD, like, and I've been dealing with it somehow for my whole life, like somehow succeeding despite it. And so like maybe like 6 months ago or something, 5 months ago, I got this, and they finally gave me like Adderall. So I was able to like start waking up really early and like just boom, 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 like, so I've been working my ass off. Like today I woke up at like 5:30. And I was writing by 7 a.m. and I worked all the way till 2 or 3 o'clock before I realized I hadn't eaten anything. And then like, but even with all that, I've got so much on my plate at the moment, and all the help that I had sort of evaporated, that I originally thought, I don't want to say this out loud too loud, but originally I said August 2023 is my due date because I thought I'd have it done by like this August. And I was like, yeah, that gives me a year, but I'm gonna like blow everyone's expectations. And then all of a sudden, happened. And so now I'm like, oh crap. Like, so now I think it's actually going to come in around August 2023 because I'm like, oh my gosh. Cause like, I've just got so much to do. And it's like, even with all that time, I'm doing it, you know, I haven't stopped. I mean, I put out about 2,000 words a day. You know, it's a pretty steady, you know, it's a pretty steady flow, and it's pretty good when it comes out, you know, like, so I do a round or two of revision and then put it away for a while, come back to it many months later. But, you know, like, I mean, I'm doing it. It's just taking so much time. So I think in the next month, things might, from what I'm seeing, but we'll see. And that should be fine. And then I'll be able to go back to devoting 8 to 12 hours a day to it. And then it's, you know, it's going to get done. It's just, you know, when is it going to get done? Is it going to get done early, or is it going to get done on time?
Yeah.
My goal had been early. I really wanted it to be early, but you know, it is what it is. So,
well, I think that's understandable. Like, you thought you'd have some help, and it didn't happen. You made some plans based on that. It happens. The product looks really good. You have a lot of art. I mean, the art that I didn't do, obviously, like, I'm not going to toot my own horn. I had a lot of fun working on this. I had a lot of fun working on the little assignments that you gave me for it. But the other art is like really good. I think that's something that a lot of indie projects kind of lack. And I think you've accomplished already, from what I've seen, a lot of really awesome stuff for essentially a one guy team, one guy publishing company is what you are trying to do here. That's a lot of hard work.
I'm running a business, and I'm working almost like 2 jobs at my normal job. That's basically, it's like and then I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 60-year-old and a wife and 2 dogs. And
yeah, you know, that's the hardest thing too, is like, you don't want to neglect family and all that stuff either. So
tough. But I'm doing it. I'm getting it done. I think what's crazy is that even despite all that, I'm like, let's add the Underdark. But I was like, whatever. I want this to be done right, and this is my baby. You know, I view this as like, I want this to be as top notch as possible, and it's gonna get done. I just, you know, I mean, I thought about going and hiring somebody to help me. Like, hey, could you write this chapter? Could you do that for me? And I'll go over whatever he does and make sure it ties into everything. That kind of thing. I thought about it, but then I was like, well, maybe not. I'll just do it myself, you know? And it's all me.
You can get all the praise, and then you can get all the blame if it doesn't work too. So
yeah, things coming. I want my fucking money back. No, it's really good. Everyone that's read it so far has really said a lot of high things. And when I read it, I won't read a chapter for a little while, and I'll pick it up and I'll just look at it and say, you know, because, you know, like you start to forget what you've written. You know, it's the trick that writers do. The longer they put it away, it's like they're reading it fresh, right? And especially if you change the font size and you do all these other little tricks you can do, it looks like a different piece, and that's a way that you can self-edit, catch as many mistakes as possible. You're not going to catch them all, but and my wife's a PhD in literature, so I was going to have her, when it's totally done, do one last edit for me as a total person who doesn't play D&D at all, doesn't want anything to do with it. And she'll turn around, she'll read it, look through it, and give me one last thing. And so I figure between all that, I'll catch all the mistakes. But everything I keep reading, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I get excited about it. I'm like, man, I really want to run this right now, you know?
That's the thing. Like, you want to, when you're working on an RPG product, if you're not looking at what we've created and you're like not excited about running it yourself as the creator, you need to work on fixing that. That's a problem, you know. Like that's how I felt with Cowpunchers. It was like, as I was working on it, it was a lot of hard work, but it wasn't like I just need to get this done so that it's done, you know. It was like, I want to get this done because I want to share it with my friends, and I want to play it, and I want other people to play it because I'm genuinely excited about sharing this with people. So I think the fact that you feel like that about it is I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, I wanted, like, a book that's really inspired me with this design was astonishing. Hyperborea. That book is a work of art. Like, you look at that book and I don't even want to like touch it. I'll mess it up or something. Like, it's a beautiful piece of art, and I think right now I'm thinking of I guess the second edition. They're all really cool. All three of them look really neat. That was the one I've really read the most. But that book is just beautiful. And like, you could just tell that guy, Jeffrey Talanian, however you say his name, he put his tender love and care into that book. And that's kind of how I'm viewing this book, is like, I want the same level of artistic quality and art and the writing. I want it to be just perfect, because that book to me was as close as you hit the I mean, that's a nice book, that's a really nice book.
Yeah, Crossface on the server would be happy to hear you say that. He's always going on about Hyperborea here on the server, which I would love to play it someday. Never had a chance to play it, but I love the idea. I think some people find the setting kind of cheesy, right? Because it's like isn't it like a piece of Earth that's exploded, because Earth exploded and it's just like a chunk of Earth that's floating in space.
That's like far future weird science apocalypse dying Earth stuff.
I like that kind of stuff. It's like so pulpy. Yeah, it's great.
I think it's like an actual edge of the ocean. It's so great.
Yeah.
You're like, yes.
The Earth isn't flat. I guess it's like domed.
Slightly concave or convex, whatever the hell, which one it was. Not a math professor. What do you expect?
I guess Lord Mateus is taking off. See you, Lord Mateus. He says, all right, guys, I got to go to work in the morning. This was an awesome stream. Can't wait to get my copy. August 2023. Have a good night, y'all. And then Raven's talking more about his bookshelf being too small. I get it. You have a small apartment.
He's bitter. Very bitter. He's very bitter. He's like, my bookshelf, fucking book.
What he calls his coffin in an apartment.
And Adam Black says the chapter that he read was 100% awesome. And the chapters I read, and I'll say I got to read the ending of it that you have planned, I think. And it's really cool. I think it's really awesome. I think people... I like the different things that you're drawing from. Because you're I'm not going to spoil it, but I'll say I love the Lovecraftian themes. I love the Lovecraftian themes that you're drawing from. Because I love that kind of stuff. I'm a big Call of Cthulhu fan. I love that game. I love Lovecraftian horror and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I love what you did. What you're gonna where the story ends, where the adventure ends in this little campaign setting, this sandbox scenario that you have, and the consequences of what players do and don't do. I like how there's meaning to what they do.
I wanted there to be like a moral dilemma at the end, and not an easy one. And so, I don't mind spoiling. Right, well, okay. I'm assuming most people who back it are probably wanting to run it. So
we'll say a spoiler warning right here. So like if you're going to be a player in this, don't watch this point. All right.
So there's I'll just give you very quick. There's the Witch Lord Balor, the Skull God, who's been cast as the main villain for this entire adventure, but he's not. And he's actually found something that's a lot worse than he is. He has bitten off more than he can chew. And one of the themes of the story is can those who've done evil be redeemed? There's sort of a theme. It's very loose. It's not like some crazy, but it's just there. Like there are characters and situations you meet, and the players get the choice. How do they react to this? And I like throwing those little moral quandaries at parties in my own game. And letting them. I don't really have a right answer. I respond in my own games to whatever they do, and try to be logical about what makes sense. And so I thought about this, and I said, well, okay, obviously I knew who the real big bad guy is, and it's basically like almost entropy, it's Cthulhu-esque, like a Lovecraftian type creature. Kind of represents the devouring of all things. You think of like heat, death, and science. I've studied under philosophers of science. My last boss was a very famous philosopher of science, and so even though I'm not a philosophy science guy, I'm a creative writer. I'm an English guy. I know a lot about philosophy, science, astrophysics, especially because I went around and gave lectures to it around the world and different areas all over the Europe and India and stuff, and throughout the United States. And basically, like, I sort of envision like this monster. You know, you got to have that one big monster at the end. You know, and they've got this big bad, the, you know, sort of elder evil type creature at the end, who's the true big bad guy, and is irredeemable. You know, this is the big, you know, the big evil thing that just can't, you know, it's just pure evil, and it's bigger and badder than anything around, you know, than at least the other bad guys, and so the Witch Lord, who's been sort of the bad guy, and the idea I had was that throughout the module, you're going through his home. You know, you're going through his home, and you're gonna find these like memory stones where you learn about him, you find out how crazy he is, how bad he is, all these bad things he's done. And he starts out like a villain, but as you learn more and more about him, it becomes sort of, you know, he becomes sort of tragic, right? Mm-hmm. Because that makes it kind of interesting, right? Especially when you go, I understand why he did that, but that was still wrong. And, you know, those are the most interesting characters. And it's a trick you do in fiction writing. You know, you ever see those bad guys that you really like? A lot of times what they do is to get you to like them is they don't show them being bad until you like them. Then they show them being bad. Mm-hmm. So like you read like the novel Lolita. It's about a guy who likes banging 13-year-old girls. Right? So, this guy's a Chester, right? He's a total Chester. But you love him because you don't find that out for like a chapter or two. And you fall in love with this guy because he's so funny. And then you find out, you start making excuses for him because you like him already. That's a trick in fiction. So if you show the guy to be unlikable right away, no matter what you show later, he'll always be unlikable or the villain. But you can start to make it more complex by showing that he's got not all a bad side, right? So that's what I'm doing there with this guy, with this Witch Lord character. He's going to be evil. He's a bad guy, and he's done bad guy things, right? Inexcusable things. And certainly anyone could make the case they could just kill him, right? But what's going to happen is by the end of the module, I've got it where the GM gets to make a choice. Do they want to make it possible to redeem him? And it explains if you do or you don't. You know, you don't want to make it. You want to make things simple, fine. It's there for you. I've given you that. If you want to make things a little bit more, then that's there too. And then, of course, the players then have a choice, even if he is evil or even if he is redeemable. Either way, they still have a choice because at the end of the module, he's trapped with this horrible evil thing with the last of his minions. And what's happened is he's trapped in this like interdimensional labyrinth that's at the edge of time. And basically this thing has been imprisoned there by, you know, nameless celestial beings, whatever, the gods. And this thing is trying to eat him. And it's been trying to eat him for 20 years and he's fought it off, but he'll eventually lose. And he knows it and it knows it. And he can't kill it because every time he kills it, it uses its palingenesis ability, which allows it to spring out like Cthulhu all reborn again. And it just keeps coming at him. And it's like one day it's going to get him. And what happens is it has an ability to devour souls. And basically, if it devours so many hit dice, it's too powerful for its prison. That's the rule. And so in the game, when you enter the last scene, it needs to eat only so many hit dice, including the players. And if it does, it gets out. And if they kill it, it comes back within a D6 plus whatever rounds. So the players are immediately stuck with this thing and their enemy they've been thinking they're going to fight at the end. And they're like, and the first thing he does, even if he's evil, is he comes to them and says, help me out. Because it's the only way. He can't get out without their help. And they can't get out really without his. And so like there becomes this, you know, do we help him? Do we just kill him? If they kill him, he gets fed to the thing because it eats anything soul that dies there. And they don't know that. So like if the players run up and paladin him, they suddenly get this thing free and it starts tearing everything apart and it gets out. And it gets free, and it's huge, and it turns into this bigger and bigger thing. So it basically describes the end of the world.
Yeah, nice.
So it's like this cool thing where like if you know the DM gets to choose, do they want this guy to be redeemable or not? And there's all these different, you know, ramifications. And then there's whether he is evil or not. Regardless of that, the players get to choose: do we help him? Do we help him just till we get out? Do we leave him? do we just try to kill everything, you know? And there's a ton of different options for the ending. And my goal was also to write an actual epilogue and ending for every single possibility. Like, remember that old game Torment, Planescape Torment? Had a different ending for each alignment. I want there to be an actual epilogue for every possible conceivable choice I can think of happening. Because I always felt like, you guys ever read a module and it's really good and it's really long and all this time's been put onto it by Wizards of the Coast, and you get to the end and it's like, they win.
Yeah.
You're like, what? You're not even gonna tell me, like, well, they live happily ever after. What? Like, I want to have like an ending for, like, the DM doesn't have to think about it. You know, he can.
Yeah.
So anyway, I probably got off tangent there, but anyway. So
no, it sounds really awesome. Like I really want to play it now. So
or
run it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't really get to play much anymore.
Yeah, same here. I'm forever GM, but it's okay. Yeah. I like GMing. It's fun.
I will run you guys through a game if you want to get down. You just let me know. We sync up our schedules. It can happen.
Sure. Yeah. So I want to say hi to Cigar DM. He's in here right now. What's up, man? Welcome. But yeah, I think it's just, to me, like, I'm impressed that you decided to do such a massive project as like your first RPG project. That's more ballsy than what I've done or anything I've done. Although I think making different things, but besides the point, like, it's impressive. And for people in chat and people watching, you made entirely new creatures for this too. It's essentially, it's not just a campaign setting and it's not just a mega dungeon. Like, every monster in here is new. This is essentially it could be considered a monster manual as well, right?
Yeah. No. So one of the things I learned as a DM is just, like, you know, even if you have a new edition of the game, the old players know all the monsters. You know, like, and they're not scared of them. The only people who are scared of them are the new players, right? Mm-hmm. And what I found, though, is that the only way I could really scare my old players was to throw something they just didn't know what it was, right? And that's kind of the basis of horror, right? You know, as soon as you know what the monster is, it's now an action movie, right? Mm-hmm. But when you don't know what it is, right, like, you know, like, it's scary as hell, right? So I guess, like, the same thing is, like, what if I make all the I mean, you know, OSC, you know, those old school editions, it's real easy to make a monster, you know. Sure. It's pretty simple. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna make all the encounters, the preset encounters that aren't with, like, humans and stuff. Like, obviously those are just class people, but, like, all the monsters are going to be something new. They might have echoes of things you've seen before, but they're going to be different. And I do use, because I just, you know, there is an end to how much I can tackle. I do use traditional monsters from the OSC book for the wandering monster tables, but just for those. So if you want to, like, have wandering monsters, there are tables for every single one of the things, and it's got a lot of the monsters from the OSC book in there, but they're not, none of the preset encounters use any of the normal monsters. So every single one of them so far has been brand new.
Well, nothing says,
for example, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so nothing says that a GM can't look at the monsters that exist within the dungeon and be like, well, yeah, there's some of these guys that are this kind of monster from this preset encounter. They're wandering the halls over here, and that's who the players run into. Nothing says you can't do that. So.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like, yeah, I mean, some of the areas where that is, yeah, those monsters also appear in those. But like, I remember Carlos Castillo did this type of skeleton where it was like, and it's this area called the Piscina of Doom. I love this area. And it's like this evil font, and, like, it's like a pool of water. It's like sizzling like acid. And these, like, little skeletons, like bleeding skeletons, come out, and they're covered with sizzling acid, like burned flesh. And they spit out, like, globs of acid. And so I had a player say to me, like, well, it's kind of dumb. It's a skeleton. Where's the acid coming from? I'm like, it's magic. But then I was like, you know what? Let's make a sack under there that's, like, pulsing.
There you go.
And let's have it. The sack is just, hey, it's the only, like, a nut sack.
A ball.
And it spits out, like, the stuff.
A Balchinian from Men in Black.
Yeah, Balchinian, yeah.
Yeah, no, and like that. It's that kind of thing. I'll take like the skeleton and reinvent it and make it something new. And it's not like it's not like crazy. Like every monster is like totally like inconceivably new. But like I take a lot of them. Like there's a dragon in there, and I named him Gleok, like the original Legend of Zelda guy. Remember? Like Gleok, he's a two-headed dragon. And like he flies around and he's got like so he's a dragon, but he's different. You've never seen anything like this one, like, and he's got some extra abilities and stuff that isn't typical for a dragon that kind of sets him apart,
Well,
like, so it's like stuff like that, like everything's like new and kind of fresh and like, what is this, and but it's familiar enough that it's D&D, it's not too out there.
That's enough to like throw a player off from metagaming, I think, though.
Mhm.
I do that all the time where it's like I'm gonna take a ghoul and I'm gonna like change its color, change maybe the effect that happens when it strikes an opponent. Maybe instead of paralysis, it does something else. And now the players go in. That's enough to make the players go into an encounter and be like, I know how to deal with this. And then their plan for a ghoul doesn't work. And now they're like, oh crap, what do we do? And that's enough to terrify them.
Yep.
Right.
It's actually one of my favorite things to do. So yeah.
What do you what have you done with that like recently with Vic?
As in changing monsters and stuff. Well, my go-to example, which I've probably told on here before, was with the shambling mount that had been drinking from like the fountain that was like belonged to like some ancient goddess, so the water was like all holy and stuff. So it had been like sucking up this radiant energy for like years. So instead of like healing from lightning, which is what shambling mounts usually do, it healed from radiant damage. So when like the cleric and the paladin are like hitting it, it's just like healing, and it's like, why isn't it dying? And meanwhile. So it was like in this magical apple grove, and meanwhile there were like these glowing apples like up in the trees, and like as the legendary action, I would have like the apples drop and explode in like radiant damage, basically, like randomly on the map and stuff. So I just did stuff like that. So it was just like a normal shambling mount, but I just changed it enough that it was like completely different.
Yeah, it's like, again, that's enough to make players go like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Oh god, what we normally, I read the monster manual and you're supposed to do this and that's not doing anything. So,
Yeah. Yep. Well, this was after they killed like a young green dragon in like 3 rounds, and I'm like, fuck you guys. Yeah.
I'm out of questions. Do you have any questions for
Yeah, I have one about the Kickstarter. One thing I found interesting that you did is with the softcover and the hardcover copies, you basically said like, okay, you pay this much, but then when it comes out, you still have to pay the printing cost, which is just like the basic printing cost. Did you have any pushback against that, or did people just accept that? Because I'm kind of considering the same thing. I'm waffling between like, do I take the cost or do I make them take it? But
no, a great question. I kind of deliberate over that one a while. I mean, from the publishing standpoint, right? I mean, clearly that's like the way to go. And there are a lot of people starting to do that. You see that more and more. I don't know if a lot, but I've seen more and more like, hey, pay this up front, and then you'll get tapped on the end for just the base printing.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, like, I'm not Wizards of the Coast. Most, like you guys, I'm sure third party. We're us third party guys. We're not Wizards of the Coast. We don't have this massive amount of money to go do a print run of 8 billion. So the things are pretty cheap, and like, that the drive-through model is pretty brilliant from our standpoint. Maybe not the customers as much, but like it's pretty brilliant because it takes all the danger from publishing kind of away. And I guess the only downside is that people may bitch about it. And my experience, I thought I was concerned with that because I was, I could see some people bitching about it. Like I would have been okay with it, but like if they're upfront about it, but like I could see people getting upset. Like I had two guys actually got really mad at me, and like they thought, I guess they didn't see it. Like they must have skimmed, they didn't read it and they must have missed it. And so they backed it and then they got upset. And they were kind of like, kind of got blasted me and stuff over it. And I was just kind of like, well, I pretty clearly stated it there, but I guess just, it happens. They missed it and they got mad and they kind of ribbed me for a little while. And I was But I got it. I understood why they were upset. They missed it. They didn't see that, and there was probably a lot of information. Probably saw the art. They didn't. They just not everyone skins it, or maybe they
Yeah.
how it goes. And so I was worried, but that was really it. Like I didn't really get. Because I was up front. I think everybody was like, he told us what you're getting into, and they didn't say a word about it. And I didn't get it. Other than those two guys, I didn't get anything. And those two guys finally, okay, yeah, we got it, and they chilled out, and that was that. So it's I think it's when you're in the position like you and I are in, where we're trying to do this out of pocket. I mean, this book I'm doing, it's going to be like probably around 30,000 when all is said and done. I'm probably going to be left with like $3 or $4 grand if I do it right. Just cheap. And maybe with cutting corners, it might still go over and I'm in the red again. But with the model that it is, if you can get it covered and then they pay that base cost, it takes the pressure off you a little bit. And then maybe you come out with something that would never have come out. And I think that's pretty cool. And I also, that's one of the things I told those two guys when we were arguing a little bit. I was like, I think a lot of people too, will sometimes come to Kickstarter and they will view it as, an exchange of goods, like a sale.
It's not really, but yeah.
Right. No, you're 100% right. It's not actually. It's more like a nonprofit. Like if I'm giving to you and you're doing a Kickstarter, you don't actually have to you don't have to ever give me anything. And they're pretty clear about that. But if you actually go read their mission statement, you're funding the arts. It's more about giving that, and everything else. You getting something is a secondary thing. And so and I did nonprofit work for a long time. I was a senior director at a company, and I did that kind of stuff. And basically, you get your donors because they believe in your mission. It's not like I'm, like if I'm a company, you give me money for some product you want, like an iPhone or whatever. But with nonprofit, it's I believe in what you're doing and making a difference, whether it's through art, sort of religious work, or whatever it is, you're feeding the hungry, whatever it is you're doing. And to me, I think the Kickstarter, I think a lot of people on some level understand that. And so they probably come at it like we're supporting guys who can't, they're lone wolves, like you, me, and John. We're just doing this out of our basement, so I think a lot of them are, it felt like donors to me. That was one thing I noticed as a Kickstarter guy. It felt like I wasn't dealing with customers for the most part. It actually felt like I was dealing with donors who were trying to unite their money with a cause they believed in. That's how it felt. And that there was almost no difference in my experience with these people than when I was in nonprofit work. And now I'm back in universities, but and I was like, wow, okay. I was like, this is very similar. And I was like, you have to, in donors, it's a little different. You build a relationship with them. You're sharing a narrative with them, a story they can believe in, and the work's a little different than sales. It's where you're just saying, hey, this is why we're the best product. You get our phone because it has X, Y, Z, and that kind of thing. Anyway, but I think overall you're fine. I think you really are. As long as you're just upfront, very clear, then what are they going to say? You might have a guy every now and then miss it because he gets excited about the product or whatever, but you know.
I felt like you were pretty clear in the Kickstarter. I mean, I saw that when I read it and everything, and I saw your Kickstarter as like I'm raising funds so that I can get art, editing, and layout, and all these other sorts of things done that I otherwise would have to do myself. Or I'm trying to make the quality of this book better, and in return, you're going to get to buy the book at costs when it's all said and done. Which Drive-Thru RPG print on demand costs they're pretty affordable.
It went up slightly recently, but it's still not bad at all.
So you're still getting a deal, and I think if your book is as big and as awesome as we've talked about, you're getting a deal.
You're right.
Well, so, the other approach I considered was just increasing, the pledge like a little. So instead of like 30 for the hardcover, you pay 35. So there's like a little bit of a buffer for me for like paying like the printing cost, So not all of the money that I want for art is getting sucked away by having to actually pay for the printing. you know what I mean. But I don't know,
Yeah.
something to consider, something I still need to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it. This damn line off.
I think Kickstarter's helped you, like, Kickstarter is a good marketing tool too. I'm kind of scared to do it, just because I watched you do it. You were in the Gilded server here, and you were talking about, like, oh man, I just can't wait for this to be over, and it made me be like, I've considered it in the past, but that just sounds like a lot of gray hair for a month, but I might still do it for a project in the future. I don't know.
I would say you're better off than I was, because you actually probably have a following now. I saw I remember even when I jumped on with you, like, and I met you first time, your follower count was much lower, and like, I think you have like an audience who might be willing to listen to you. So like, I had 0 in December. I had 0 social media presence. I wasn't on social media anywhere, and I had to build it from December to March is when it launched. So like, and that's what I did. Concerted effort. And the way I did it was because I spent a lot of money on the art, like out of my own pocket. And then I showcased it. I was like, I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to pop that sucker out there, because it's really, I hate to say this as a writer, it causes me great pain, but at the end of the day, it's not the writing that sells your stuff. It's the art.
Yeah.
Goddamn artist. No.
That's okay. We're gonna. They're
stealing
talking
all the glory and all the money.
They're talking about replacing us with Dolly 2 and AI generated art anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah,
you've got a big advantage because you're already an art guy. So like I have 0 artistic skills. So all my art comes from other amazing people, and like like for you, you can do both. You can write and you can turn around and do your own art, at 0 cost. And on top of that, you have an audience now. And so I think you actually have all the elements there. So I think it's really just a matter of, do you want to really do it, and then can you paint the vision for what you're doing to the person in a way that they can understand in a very brief, simple, but powerful way. And I think that's one thing I did well, was that I did just that. You had that big Gods of the Forbidden North banner, the title, you had the art, and then you had that evocative opening prologue, like, kind of Conan-like writing, and then these maps and just elements, enough for people to put a vision together what this is, and they can see it. And if you can do that, which I think you have, clearly the ability to do with the artistic ability, you can do that. I think you'd be great. You would do a lot better than I would. I think you really would. You'd be awesome. It'd be cool.
I'm glad you believe in me.
Yeah. Already, in addition to your artwork, you've built up a very large following. You've turned around, and you've stood up to some people who are kind of annoying. Try to refrain from that kind of talk, but it's
sure,
kind of like, oh my.
I just have no filter. That's my problem. But
that's a fresh air. Like a lot of people are too filtered nowadays, and they're tiptoeing around. And it's not that me personally, with that stuff, I think it's just people want honesty. People want people to be honest, whatever it is, just to be forward. And you've done that, and I think people respect you for that. And so it gives you, you've built a following because of it. And so now you have a very large following, and I think that you could use that for your, powers for good or evil.
I don't know if Vince realizes we're doing a live stream. It's okay. We're getting towards the end here, anyways.
What up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
He slipped out. He's like, no, I was watching.
We're getting towards the end here, and I know it's late for you. I guess are people still able to back your project right now?
Yeah, no, we just do it through PayPal, and they can just shoot me a message through Twitter or Facebook. I got an account, and we can just work it out, or through Kickstarter. They can still message me there. I've had a few do that, late pledges, and I've got a little document where I'm keeping track of everyone. I won't forget you.
Cool.
I might have to do that because I kind of missed the boat when it happened, because I was a bit short on money, so I didn't really have $50 to drop on a random Kickstarter. But yeah,
3-1 Vic. What are you talking about? You're gonna get. I'll send you the special the super secret squirrel code where you get the base prize.
Oh yeah, that works too.
I have a link here to the Kickstarter. I mean, obviously they can't use it, but they can kind of scroll through it and they can see what the project is about and the art and all that kind of stuff, the writing, the maps, all that stuff. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the video description so that you can kind of look and see what it's all about. Is there anything else you want to say, Rob, before we close the episode out about your project? Or
up to those who are watching that backed me, I mean, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it a lot. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to get it to your hands. So working hard for it. I'm busting my ass. It'll get there.
Yep.
Well, I think with that we'll close this episode out here. I want to thank Vic for, as always, for being on, and check out his stuff. He's got lots of cool, even OSR stuff. Yeah. He makes stuff for everything. He does the 5e stuff, but he's an OSR guy too. He's got his simple modernity. He used my Cowpunchers rules and made a European apocalyptic game, which is really cool. Waste Runners. And you're on Big Geek Emporium. I'm on Big Geek Emporium. Check us out there. And yeah, check out Gods of the Forbidden North by Pulphummock Press. So,
and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, thanks for coming on, man. I wanted to talk to you about it sooner, but I knew you'd been like super busy with everything you're doing. So, but I wanted to still shine a light on what you're doing because I think it's really cool, and I really enjoyed working on the project, and I believe in it. Like I backed it. I want to tell people I backed it, but I backed it before you even hired me, because I thought it was so cool, and I wanted this book. And then when it was just icing on the cake, when you're like, hey, you want to do art for it? I'm like, heck yeah. So, yeah, check out Gods of the Forbidden North. Check out Vic's stuff. Check out my stuff. And we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys later.